key change would include ending home delivery and converting the remaining 4 million addresses to community mailboxes.
This is not a slow transition, it's a rupture.
Mark Carney's burning through our cash. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we got Carney out in Spain. He was in the UK. He's terrified of Pierre Poilievre. That's why he's out doing this right now versus doing this in the summertime. We also have the CBC fact-checking Mark Carney. That's right, I just said that. Carney's lies are so bad that the CBC having to fact check him. Carney did make a deal with Indonesia, likely to enrich himself, of course. We've got a bunch of stuff here. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, Mark Carney met with the Prime Minister of Spain, Pedro Sanchez. He's burning through the jet fuel. Is he using green jet fuel or is this normal jet fuel? And in return, what have we got? Well, Poilievre posting this one. America's economic record. Annualized GDP change 3.8 increase for America, minus 1.6 from Canada. We're getting nothing in return from Carney. Here he is bragging about all the things he's doing.
Conservatives say you are jetting around but getting nothing done. You've met with numerous leaders while you've been here, but you're not signing a new deal or making, announcing a new partnership. What have you achieved tangibly for Canadians during this trip?
Yeah, look, there's a couple of things, Jeremy. One is that, and I would look at what we've done over the course of the last 10 days in Mexico, in New York, in Ottawa, in London. Major trade deal with the fourth largest population economy in the world, Indonesia, a country that's on track to be the fifth largest economy in the world over the next 2 decades.
So that sounds like a big thing. Big population, big deal. Is it really a big deal though? We got this here, Canada to boost Indonesia exports to diversify non-US trade, says Minister. So what has Carney done here? He signed a deal here. Canada aims to establish duty-free access up to 95% of its exports to Indonesia over the next 8 to 12 months. It goes on to say, I see a lot of opportunities in agriculture, in energy, telecom, in defense and aerospace. Indonesia was seriously looking at Canadian small modular reactors, a new class of relatively compact nuclear reactors, he said. The question is, will Brookfield and Camco, who have essentially 50% stake in Westinghouse Nuclear Services, will they get the contract? Will Carney be enriching his Brookfield Asset Management and Brookfield Corporation stocks with this deal? It always comes back to enriching himself. Indonesia is a small market for Canadian goods and does not feature among the top 10 trading partners. That's right, it's not even in our top 10. Total bilateral trade between the two countries was just over 5 billion Canadian dollars last year, in sharp contrast to US, Canada's biggest trading partner, where bilateral trade was above 1 trillion. Mark Carney not trying to get a deal with Donald Trump. Why? Such a big market. Why wouldn't we be getting a trade deal with our biggest trading partner? That's right. Boogeyman. He's got to keep the boogeyman around. Carney might be having an election here soon. Got to keep the boogeyman around. He won't be able to drag this out for too long. Clueless liberals will buy into this for some period of time. I don't know how long that is. Another 3 months, 5 months, 8 months, another year. Who knows? You notice here too, says defense and aerospace. If Carney's not enriching himself, he's enriching his buddies. Remember this story here? Telesat Lightspeed, this satellite company where Carney's buddy got billions of dollars of taxpayer money with interest free for years?
First 5 years that you're forgiving to Telesat, and you said you'll get goods in kind.
Given billions of dollars, and so it's fair to say that you gave money to a satellite company that doesn't have a satellite network to connect people to the internet, and 0 people are connected to the internet with that billion. It's 0, right? That's the number of people that are connected after a billion?
Yeah, I'm very proud of the work of Telesat and the workers at Telesat, I must say. You look at the evolution of LEO satellites in the world. You first need to raise the money, so you put them in orbit, then you provide...
Yeah, this is ridiculous. They have to use SpaceX, Elon Musk's company, to get these satellites into orbit once they finally build the satellites. This is a big grift. So going back to this once again, is Telesat going to be wrapped into this? Are they going to be making some money off this deal too? So while you see Mark Carney likely to enrich himself once again off these deals, we've got this kind of crap on the CBC. Once again, going after Pierre Poilievre and security clearance. They're just going to keep drumming up this old lie.
You would not advise briefing a chief of staff as opposed to the actual party leader in your role?
Never.
Ward Elcock, how do you see that?
What could the chief of staff do with the information? Mr. Poilievre doesn't have a clearance, so the chief of staff can't tell him the information. And the chief of staff has no power to do anything about the MPs or make decisions about the MPs because he's not the leader of the party. There's really no point to briefing the chief of staff on those issues.
There's no point to getting security clearance because the Liberals get to choose what information they give. They're not going to give Poilievre any important information, but they do get to limit his free speech, which is exactly why Trudeau designed this system like this. Unfortunately, Liberal supporters don't seem to understand this. They're buying into this lie, this blatant lie. It's all fear tactics. I mean, we look at Mark Carney, even his speech today, he keeps using the word rupture. He's trying to scare Canadians. This is WW2 strategy.
New technologies have brought distant threats to our doorstep. Power has become multipolar. Authoritarianism is resurgent, and consensus within many democracies has fractured. This is not a slow transition, it's a rupture.
In that one sentence there, he said authoritarianism, rupture, fractured. These are fear tactics to scare Canadians. He's keeping the boogeyman around. He's going to have another election and go for a majority government. That's why he doesn't care about making a coalition, a supply management agreement with the NDP or whatever. He doesn't want to have anyone else involved. Mr. Banker wants to have all the power to himself. In other news, we've got man accused of SA woman in Vaughan after claiming to be a rideshare driver. Yeah, and we got people stealing stuff at Home Depot. Theft at Home Depot in Ancaster.
You guys fucking kidding, really? You guys are fucking kidding, right? You fucking deserve it.
Wow, he took that right in the head. They steal with impunity. They have no fear. Nope. Pretty nice SUV they got there. Yep. No, at least there was, people say karma, at least there was a little bit of justice here. I think I've seen it all. What we've got here is Mark Carney getting fact-checked by CBC.
Well, after saying last month it would remove all counter tariffs on U.S. goods covered under CUSMA, new reporting from the CBC has found out that the Liberal government quietly dropped more of those tariffs than advertised. The CBC's Kate McKenna broke the story, and she joins me now. So, Kate, walk us through what you found out here.
Well, David, we all remember last month when Mark Carney announced that the government was going to be dropping some retaliatory tariffs in order to kind of push ahead with trade negotiations with the United States. So at the time, the Prime Minister said that he was essentially going to be matching what the United States was doing to us, which is to say counter tariffs were going to be dropped on CUSMA-compliant goods.
Right.
So goods that were compliant with the existing free trade agreement, implying that if a good wasn't compliant with CUSMA, then it would be tariffed. Take a listen to what he said at the time.
The Canadian government will now match the United States by removing all of Canada's tariffs on U.S. goods specifically covered under CUSMA.
Now, almost a month later, we've learned that's actually not what happened. Canada has removed all counter tariffs, regardless of whether a good was CUSMA compliant, except for, of course, the sectoral tariffs on steel, aluminum, and auto. And they never actually communicated that to the public.
Of course not. Mark Carney didn't communicate that he was removing tariffs during the election. We found out after the election. This guy's saying he has no conflicts of interest. Rosemary, what conflicts could I possibly have? Turns out he has 600 of them, or under his own account, 103. Regardless, the guy's got stocks out the wazoo. We got CBC fact-checking him here. He lied again. Bad communications. It's more of the same here. This guy's worse than Trudeau.
Found it by reading an order in council, which was never publicized and required me to ask a number of questions from the government. So this was not something that they ever told the public. Now, there might be good reasons for why the government did it. I spoke with a couple of trade lawyers who told me that it would have been extremely costly to enforce. It would have required hiring more people at the border. The amount of money, that revenue that was generated probably would have been almost negligible because most goods, if you do the paperwork, are CUSMA compliant, right? So one trade lawyer I spoke with said, this was admirable bureaucratic restraint. However, it's not what the government said that they were doing. It's not what Mark Carney said he was going to do. And the reality of it is they implied that Canada and the U.S. were doing the same things to each other. And in reality, that's not actually what happened. So we heard from Pierre Poilievre today. He posted on social media.
This was a lie. It was another lie. It's going to get added to the Carney lie tracker. This time, though, it's the CBC blasting Mark Carney on this. Never did I think this would be the case.
Saying this is another elbows down lie. Now, in a statement, the finance minister's office says they do what they do because they want to adapt their trade policy, both to get a new deal done and also to help Canadians the best that they can.
Right. That was the argument, though, for dropping the CUSMA compliant tariffs. There's been no broader explanation on the balance there, right? Because he says matching, but it's 25% on steel and aluminum versus 50%. But the explanation for why they dropped the non-CUSMA compliant goods from tariffs is just to advance trade. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. They told me they told me that it's true what we're reporting, but they didn't go into detail as to why in their response to me.
Okay. All right. Kate McKenna.
And that's just it. The Liberals are liars. They should get fined for every time they lie, and not $50. It should be $10,000 every lie. I mean, how are we supposed to have an institution with credibility when they don't even tell us the truth of what they're doing? It's deplorable. Got this one here. Tremendous day for us. Nanaimo Airport shares profits with Simieritsch, whatever, First Nations. They're giving a portion of the profits of the Nanaimo Airport to First Nations now. They signed a historic agreement recognizing rights to their airspace and land an airport operates on. Come on. Like, when does this end? Trying to make up for sins of the past 180 years ago. No one's alive from back then. We are all Canadians. When will we all be treated as equals? And not only that, are First Nations going to help for airport upgrades, roads, paving? Or are they just going to take money and offer nothing back? This is ridiculous. Because not only is it Nanaimo Airport now, Mount Benson, the biggest mountain right next to Nanaimo, was also given over to First Nations after taxpayers paid for a brand new trail up there. Are they going to maintain the trail? Because the city's probably not going to do it anymore. This is setting a nasty standard in British Columbia that land ownership is not guaranteed. Why would anyone start a business here unless they're First Nations? And other First Nations news, we got Dallas Brody of the One BC Party. Look at this. The city of Vancouver has demanded that I destroy the documents I posted last week revealing how much money they paid Musqueam to rename Trutch Street. So Trutch Street got renamed to Schmuck, whatever that thing is. It's a big long word that nobody can say, which is causing a lot of havoc to the people who live on that street because they can't type the name of the street into any app, so it doesn't work anymore. I write to you as it appears that you have provided with access one or more of records that were subject to privacy breach, yada yada. City of Vancouver trying to cover their trails here. And so what's in relation to, you can see here, leaked documents show that the city paid Musqueam $33,500 to come to meetings and events for the renaming of Trutch Street. Here's the name of the street. Like, nobody can spell that, nobody can say that. Obviously this is stupid. And they're saying this all colonial, they had to rename Trutch. Like, this is ridiculous, guys. There's history is history. Stop wasting taxpayer money. If they want to add First Nation names to different streets, add it to new streets. And so this word here that nobody can say or whatever translates to Musqueam View Street. Reimbursement for expenses completed. Prior staff time dedicated for planning, yada yada, $10,000. Meetings, $6,000. Attend up to 10 meetings with the city of Vancouver. Collaborative work, $7,500. Working collaboratively with elements, street design, yada yada. This is such a waste of money. This is egregious. Anyone involved in this needs to be fired at Vancouver City Hall. And the event, another $10,000 working together to plan and execute the event.
Trutch Street in Kitsilano got renamed. How would you pronounce the Indigenous name? That? Oh my goodness. Six make
Six Maug.
Oh
God. Mau.
Exactly. A waste of money and stupid. It's no surprise Vancouver homeowners pay highest property taxes in Canada. Yeah, because you got stupid spending like this. Renaming streets. So essentially Vancouver City Hall paid Musqueam Indian Band $33,000 to go to some meetings. Looks like financial corruption to me. We got some other news here. Canada Post. This whole situation has blown up. Once again, essentially they've stopped door-to-door delivery.
Let's begin with a story that's not only breaking but developing this evening. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers says it is on strike effective immediately. This is the second nationwide strike in under a year. The move in a direct response to a series of proposed changes to Canada Post.
At present, the corporation is losing $10 million every day. In short, Canada Post is effectively insolvent and it is facing an existential crisis. Canadians are rightfully attached to it and want it safe. However, repeated bailouts from the federal government are not the solution.
Ottawa says its proposed measures could save hundreds of millions of dollars. The key change would include ending home delivery and converting the remaining 4 million addresses to community mailboxes. Canada Post is on track to lose $1.5 billion this year. Ottawa is giving the Postal Service 45 days to detail how it will proceed.
That's interesting. I'm one of those 4 million that still gets mail delivered to the door. Wonder if all the mailmen that come by they're losing their jobs now. This was a mess that they tried to kick down the can because they thought the Conservatives were going to win, and now they're having to deal with it. And instead of essentially negotiating again with them, they just decided to cut the mail delivery to deal with it. So obviously Canada Post workers, the union, are all pissed off about this. Carney's getting hammered on all fronts, whether it's Gary Anasandri, Canada Post, not getting a deal with Donald Trump, or the deficit.
This tired, old Liberal government has doubled the deficit and has abandoned any fiscal anchors it once had, putting Canada's AAA credit rating at risk. The Parliamentary Budget Officer warns that rating agencies are not going to tolerate Liberal accounting tricks, and that if they even have a sniff of a change of a budget presentation, Canadians will be paying higher interest rates immediately. Why is this government playing political games with the budget and risking higher costs for all Canadians?